In terms of other links between sessions, and again you might think of additional links between sessions as well, because I'm just going to highlight what I think are a few, and quite just consecutive sessions really, but you might make other links as well. So there we've talked about Sturkis Axis and embracing luck, so the beginning and the end, maybe it takes us back there. The good luck mindset and opportunity knocks. I mean, the reason why I put those together, one after the other, is I felt that once we're able to start to consider the possibility that there is something that I'm calling a good luck mindset, does that help us with creating, or first of all, noticing opportunities and creating them? So that's one suggestion, there's links there. In the opportunity knock session, that's where we looked at mindfulness and mindful approaches. And there are some resources there that I encourage you to, when you feel able to and want to, is to try every so often, just pause and remind ourselves to be present. Because maybe gratitude and optimism are linked to this idea of recognizing what's good about what's happening and have a gentle expectation about what's going to happen without being too caught up in the future or the past, that we still remember ourselves to be present. And that could help us with noticing those kinds of opportunities. So I think there's links there that one could explore, perhaps further. And then linking, well, this idea that noticing and creating opportunities, and as part of that was this mindful approach again. Well, I think a mindful approach to everyday life, if we're able to cultivate it, is possibly a very important part in being more comfortable with this notion of going with the flow. I think mindful approaches are very much aware that things are happening around us, whether or not we attend to them or not, whether or not we get caught up in them or not. And mindfulness is, in large parts, about allowing those things to be, allowing our thoughts to come and go, noticing them, not judging them, accepting them. And to me, that's a big part, potentially, of going with the flow. So there's links there to be made. And then, of course, this idea of going with the flow, as I've just said, a large part of that is about accepting, allowing things to be the way they are, and that could be helpful in terms of when we're dealing with those events which we might describe as bad luck, because we can recognise that these things are going to happen from time to time. So there's just some extra links there. So it's trying to just get across this idea that whilst each of the separate ideas could be helpful individually, the overall programme is trying to suggest that combined they could potentially be quite powerful as a way of dealing with both good and bad events in our lives. There may be additional links there. So for example, the good luck mindset may also help us with going with the flow, dealing with bad luck. You know, even though it's the good luck mindset, it's allowing us to recognise perhaps there is some things to be grateful for, even in events which overall are quite negative or something we would like to have avoided. So is that okay in terms of getting you to think about as well additional links? So a little bit more about that good luck mindset, because I've mentioned it as being perhaps quite key. This is how I framed it. And bearing in mind the good luck mindset, again, it's me putting things in inverted commas, it's a phrase I've kind of put around two important aspects. There could be other important aspects there as well. I was focusing on being thankful for the good things that often we take for granted and we don't spend time paying attention to. And having these positive expectations that good things are going to happen, or at least having an expectation it will work out for the best. Sometimes that's not the way you would hope or expect it to happen. So to me, it's this idea of flexible optimism. It's not about being blindly optimistic, that everything's going to be absolutely fine, things are always going to go your way no matter what. To me, that's not realistic. But that's not to say you can't still be optimistic. You can't still have a gentle, flexible optimism. And when things don't work out perhaps the way that you would have hoped for or intended or wished for or expected, then you find ways in which you can still work with what is happening. And that's why I think that mindset helps us with some of these other aspects of the project. So is that okay in terms of some extra ideas there? So you might feel as though there might now be some extra ideas that have been talked about that you hadn't occurred to you before, or maybe it's just echoing things you've been thinking throughout the programme anyway, which is great. So really, is what next? You know, does it all finish at this point? Well, there's still a couple of extra things I'd like folks to do in terms of the research side of it, because what I'm interested in is how these sessions impact upon you in different ways. So you'll remember at the beginning of the project, you would have completed some measurements online on something called psych data. So the idea is that you've completed those measurements at the beginning. I'd like you to complete them again at the end. Now, you haven't yet got the link to that, so I'm going to email the link out to all people taking part via email. So that'll be in about a week's time. Essentially, you'll think, well, these look familiar. I've done these before. Well, they are the same measurements to see if there's any change. So I don't want you to try to remember what you put the first time. It's not designed like that. Just, again, complete them the best you can, just as the questions come through. And then we can analyse to see if overall there's any changes between beginning and the end. So that's one part of it. There's now a final chance to write in your luck journal. If you wanted to give it to me today, those folks that are here, then by all means do, but it may be something that I've still got things I want to write in there, or that I've left it for some time. Now is my chance to kind of revisit it and write down some extra thoughts. So it's a final chance to do that. So at least the next week or so, there'll be an email that will come out to say, okay, well, first of all, here's a link to those measurements. So if you take 5 minutes to complete those, that will automatically get stored. And then ways in which you can pass your luck journal back to me. And that might be for you guys who are at the university to find a way to literally put it in the internal mail or bring it to me, or I can come and collect it from you. Or you might want to keep it, so if it's a case of photocopying it and sending me the photocopies if you wish, or scanning in. As long as I get the data, that's helpful to me. I can give you a blank one back if you want to keep writing a journal. Or you may be doing it on Blackboard, or people online may have been doing it on Blackboard. So again, opportunity to just type in there. And I already have access to those, so that's something which is already there. There's a final chance to do that. And then in the email, an invitation to take part in a short interview if you want to. So that's not something you're requiring to do. It's these two things, and people doing it online. If you do these things, then that's to me the final set of data, and give you a certificate at that point. Inviting those that would like to do a short interview. So it may well be that there are things you'd be happier talking about rather than writing down. It could be a short 10, 15-minute interview, or longer if you want it to be. And that could be done in person, it could be done on Skype. It's an opportunity, again, as a final chance to explore any things you've experienced over the last 10 or 11 weeks. So that's all beginning this interview. So the one thing is completing the measurements online, and a chance to just, if you want to add any more in terms of the luck journal, and finding a way of getting it to me. And those people who are doing it online, if you've got a hard copy one, again, you kind of post it back to me, or email, or scan it in, whichever way you want to do that. So that's what I'm asking you guys to do next. You might be thinking, well, that's all interesting, so how do we find out then what the findings might be? So I'm very mindful of that. You've given a lot of time to this, so I want to make sure you get some feedback on that. So in the first instance, I'm committing to writing a brief report, something I'm hoping you'll read, so I'm not going to be a lengthy paper at this point, but a brief report by email by the end of January. So that gives us some time to collate the data first of all, and for me to do some initial analyses. So that's in terms of looking at differences in some of those measurements scales before and afterwards. And then also some qualitative analysis of the book journals and the interviews. So given that's in a relatively short space of time, it'll be some initial analysis of some of that qualitative data. And then already I've been asked to give a seminar presentation as part of the Social Sciences Research Group here at the university. They have those sessions on a Wednesday afternoon, usually around about this time actually. And I'm already scheduled in for the 4th of March. So either in this email or near that time, more than happy to do an email out to invite people who would like to come along to that. I may even get folks to record it so that people online can also watch it if they really want to, which would be great. And that's an opportunity to, by that point, we'll have more data to report back on. So that's the plan. So it takes me now to say to you guys a huge thank you, and you guys online for sticking with it. And now is the time for the certificates. So you guys here, I shall give you these if you want me to give them to. For people online, if you respond to the email by completing the measurements, find a way to get your luck journal back to me, and I can get a certificate out to you. Is that okay? So on that note, I can tell you all to go and luck yourselves.